All right, hi, fifth grade. I wanted to show you this problem. It's called Granny's Balloon Trip, and this is what you're gonna work on today on Monday. I think it's Monday, right? I think this is Monday's problem. But where you find this, you go into your Google Classroom, and when you go into Google Classroom, let's see, Granny's Balloon Trip is scheduled for April 12th. It says 13th. I'm going to change that. You'll do this on Monday morning. So you go in here, open it up, and when you open it up, you'll find the problem, which will look like this, which is coming up right now. My face is coming up on the side, but this is the problem, right? And then there's questions down below. So you have like a table, you have a graph that's incomplete, just started, and then you have a bunch of questions about the table. So what we're going to do today is kind of walk you through what you need to do. And I believe you might, and on this problem, you're going to have to do it in your notebook. So please make sure that you're kind of like ready to do some graph making in your notebook. Use the lines in your notebook well. Use if you have graph paper, that would be even better. But the lines in your notebook do work pretty well for this. So we're going to go back to this, or we can just look at this problem right here. Let's blow this up a little bit. So this problem says Granny's balloon trip. This problem gives you a chance to represent data using tables and graphs. On her 80th birthday, Sarah's granny went for a trip in a hot air balloon. The table shows the schedule of the trip. Now we have two variables in this problem. We have time and we have the height above the ground in yards. So these are the two things we're comparing and they go together. So as you look at 2:30, it sounds like the balloon trip started at 2:30. They were on the ground. So sitting in the basket, but on the ground. They were 0 yards above the ground. That's what the zero represents. So they're starting down here on the graph. If we go down, they're starting right here at 2:30. You'd put a dot right there. At 3 o'clock, they're at 150 yards above the ground. So in that half hour, they've risen over that time. So we're going to find that 150 and put a dot there and then connect it with the line. Because obviously, when you move, you don't go directly like even if you're going up to a certain height, like if you're climbing stairs or if you're in a airplane or if you're kind of like in a hot air balloon, you go up gradually, right? Like you have to get from there to there. So that means it takes time to get from 0 to 150, right? So we're going to talk about that and you're going to graph the entire chart. Now notice that the time goes up by a half hour: 2:30, 3 o'clock, 3:30, 4, 4:30, 5, 5:36. So altogether, we have a balloon ride that lasted quite a long time, from 2:30 in the afternoon all the way until 6 in the evening. Now, what's interesting about that is it's a long trip, and hot air balloons are slow. They travel slow, they go up slow. They also change height as you go. So the way it works is you sit in the basket, and the basket has a motor, and that motor pushes that hot air. It's got like a flame on it, right? And it basically heats up the air. And as that hot air is captured in the balloon, it rises because hot air rises. See, it's like a science lesson now. Hot air rises. So I wanted to then go into whiteboard. I'm going to go to whiteboard here. It's going to come back. And I want to show you what we would do on this. So your job is to take this information and put it into your notebook. I want you to draw the table. I want you to draw out the graph, I'm sorry, and I'd like you to draw the table. Now, none of that is too difficult. I know it takes time. I know you're looking at like maybe 10 minutes of time to draw that table out and to draw this graph. The graph in terms of the intervals is very important. So I'm going to show you what yours should look like. So our graph on the bottom, on the time, starts at 2:30 and then 3 o'clock. So we're going to go up by half hours. So don't write 4 o'clock here. We're going to write 3:30, the next point. So I'm going to grab my pen, let's make it black for now. And I'm going to come down here and start to write it in. So I'm going to write it in on here, but you guys are going to do it in your notebook. So you're going to write in, this is 3:30, right? The next one would be 4 o'clock. The next one after that would be 4:30, and then 5 o'clock. I'm trying to write really small, 5:30, and then 6 o'clock. So now what we've done is we've covered all the way to here. Now going up on the Y, and remember, this is the X axis, right? This is represented up here. Time, in this case, and what time it is represented by X. and the height is going to be represented by the y. And this is because we're graphing points, right? So we always try to do an x and a y. The y is going up this way, right? So we're going to talk about the interval here. Instead of going up 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it doesn't do that. We're talking about 50 yards at a time. A yard is worth 3 feet. So 100 yards would be like one football field high, right? So if we're going up by 50s, then we go 0, 50, 100, and then we add another 50, and we get to 150. Right? Now, these are not the numbers here. Notice, this doesn't say up at the times went up by a half hour, but the heights did not go up the same amount. They went up at different amounts, right? So this is really, really important. Our axes, or the axis that we draw up here in the numbers, have to go up by the same amount. If I start at 0 and go up to 50, the next one also has to be an interval of plus 50, plus 50. And if I keep doing that, I'm going to go up to 200. Next, and then your next line in your notebook paper would be 250, and your next line would be 300, your next line would be 350, and then 400, 450, and then the very top one would be 500, which we actually do need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back up here, erase that y, and I'm going to come back and put in the 500. Right, because the y is still there. This whole axis is the y-axis. So we can just put this right here. This is the y-axis, right? And down here, it's the x-axis, right? Which we can put over here, horizontal x, right? Okay, so now what we need to do is graph our point. So let's say, we'll do these in color. Let's do purple. The first point we're going to graph is this one right here, right? 230 and 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of take that point, we're going to say, how do I graph that? Well, that's pretty easy. At 230, they didn't go anywhere. They were still right on the ground, right? But now let's look at the next one. I'm going to change colors just so we can kind of see that it's different. The next one, 3 o'clock and 150. So we go to 3 o'clock and we say they are 150 yards above the ground. That's a long way. So they went up a long way in that half hour. They started on the ground and went up that far. So what I'm going to do now is connect that. I'm going to draw a line from here to there. And that shows me essentially how they were traveling. And we can get points in between as well, right? Like we could say at 2:45, where were they? And if you wanted to know that, you would look like right here and say, that's 2:45. Oh, they were about somewhere between 50 and 75 yards, or 50 and 100 yards off the ground. They were about 75 yards off the ground. So now we go to the next point. Let's go to another color. Let's go to orange. We circle this and we say the next point we're going to do is 330 and 250. Oh my gosh, look at this. They're still rising, still rising. Now notice, they're not rising as fast though. They've leveled off a little bit. Do you see that? They were going steeper. In this case, they went up in 1/2 hour, they went up 150 yards. But in this case, in a half hour, they only climbed another 100 yards up to 250, right? Let's do another one. And you guys are going to do this in your notebook. I'm helping you. I'm doing a lot right now. I'm trying to help you out. But you're going to do it in your notebook. Let's do 4 and 350. So 4 o'clock, we come down here, we go up, and we graph 350. Now, what's going to happen is what goes up must come down. And this guy is still going up, still climbing, right? And he's going up, 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 up. And eventually, he's going to probably top out at 500, right? That's coming next. So eventually, they're going to make it to 500. But what I want you to do is complete this graph the whole way in your notebook and show what happens, because they have to come down as well, right? Look at where they come down. This is our high point right here. So we could say, let's say right here, this is the high point, right? High point right here at 500, right? That's our high point. So that's as high as we get, and that's as high as our graph goes. It's all we need it to go to. So you have to graph that, and then we move on. And now I know that's at 430, so we could actually come up here and put that on here. This is the high point, right? And you go from here to there. So notice the graph goes up. The graph is also going to come down. So I want you to then graph it dropping back down to 250, 100, and 0. And from that graph, then, we're going to answer some questions. So this is kind of like graphing this idea. We're going to graph all of the points. The whole thing will be filled up. And then I want you to look at the questions. So we're going to go and find the questions. Let's pick one of them. It says right here, I go down. I think you guys are going to see this in a moment. As I scroll down on this chart, I'm going to make my picture a little smaller so we can see it better. All right, it says, for about how long did the balloon stay above 250 yards? Let's go back to that. So right here, this is the one I'm reading. For about how long did the balloon stay above 250 yards? We want to know time then. So we got to go back into our graph and say 250 yards. That's what we're looking for. So what you want to do is go back. I'm grabbing a different color. We're talking about staying above 250 yards. Well, here's 250 yards. So I'm going to draw a dotted line right here, right? This is my 250 yards. Now, at some point, that balloon came back down below 250 yards. But what we know is that that balloon from this point forward is above 250 yards. So we know that for at least from 3:30 to 4:30, it's above 250 yards. And we also know that on the way down, it would be above 250 yards. So you need to figure out how much time elapses or how much time goes by where we are above, where Granny is above 250 yards in that balloon, right? So you're looking at a graph to study that. And that basically would be the time from here, right? All the way to wherever she comes down. I don't know where that is. I mean, is it the next one? Does she come down from here? So you want to kind of estimate it, right? And the other questions are similar, right? Let's look at another question. Let's go back. Another question says, at about what time do you think the balloon rose to 400 yards? We go back to our whiteboard and we say, well, 400 yards, let's get a different color. Let's go with the darker blue. 400 yards is the next one they're telling us about. They're saying, about what time did it rise above 400 yards? Wouldn't that be about right here? So that's what we're talking about right there. So I'd say, where is that on my graph? Well, I know it's after 4 o'clock. And I know it's before 4:30. It's somewhere right in between. So what you can do is take a line graph and actually find out where something is in between. And I can say, what time is it right here? Like right there, if this is 4 o'clock and that's 4:30, what time do you think it is right there? Right? Because we basically just figured that out. Like that's where this thing goes above, or that's where this thing is about 400 yards. And this is how we do this problem. We build the graph in your notebook, and then we go and we analyze the graph. So that's what you're doing now. You're analyzing the graph. All right, kids. I hope you do well in this problem. I hope you are doing it all in your notebook. You're going to take a picture, and then you're going to, of all the table, your graph, the points, the labels, and then you're going to send it to me. I think that's about I'd say it's like a 40-minute problem to do this well, to do it nicely, about a 40-minute problem. And the questions I think you can answer is 3 questions that we talked about, 2 of them, and then there's one more. Do your best. Remember, grades come out on later this week on Thursday. I'm going to be having all my grades totally in. So if you have any other things to make up this week, Khan Academy from last week, any assignments you need to work on, please get them done because I will be putting them in. And have a great day. I'll see you guys again with a video tomorrow. All right. Bye, everybody.